I don't know exactly what it means to be a fan of hoarding shows, but I would count myself among the fans of Hoarders and the other show that's discussed in this article, Hoarding Buried Alive. I'm also like a super neat and organized person, so I don't know if seeing instances of hoarding is somehow therapeutic for me. Uh, I don't think I could ever be in the presence of actual hoarding and deal with it, but I can certainly watch it on TV. I would also argue that this article's position was more one of the more unique ones that we're going to read this semester, and certainly the most intriguing to me. So I'm excited to talk through the issues that Kaplan raises. So there are a couple of shows that are being discussed here: Hoarders and Hoarding Buried Alive. So Hoarders was on A&E and Hoarding Buried Alive was on TLC. Hoarders was kind of a spinoff of Intervention. Intervention is the show that I've written about that deals with drug and alcohol addiction. Hoarders obviously deals with people with obsessive compulsive hoarding disorder. The early seasons of Intervention had what I thought were sort of marginal behaviors that would be addressed by interventions. There was obsessive eating, obsessive gambling, and a lot of obsessive compulsive behavior that I didn't think fit quite in the model of intervention. There were two spinoffs. It was Hoarders and Obsessed, and Hoarders persisted way longer than Obsessed. Um, these shows brought hoarding forward as an illness that was deserving of compassion. You do, in watching these shows, feel bad for the people that are afflicted with this psychological disorder. It's really troubling. It's disturbing. Um, and these shows brought that into the forefront. I'm not sure how many people were familiar with hoarding as an activity before these shows really popularized the disorder. Kaplan calls these life intervention shows. So Hoarders, Hoarding Buried Alive, Intervention, Obsessed. There were a whole bunch of other shows, my Crazy Obsession, people eating glue, and all kinds of things that are really bad for them. There was a whole series of these shows, most of which are not on anymore. Um, they bridge the gap between reality television and therapy. It's hard to argue that these shows don't perform some therapeutic need for the people that are featured on them. At the same time, it's these shows exploit them for profit. These shows are benefiting from their illness financially. Um, Hoarding, which is the obsessive keeping of things, becomes an illness when it creates dysfunction, safety, health. There's a whole bunch of consequences that come from hoarding. Um, Hoarders have an appreciation and attachment to ordinary objects. Sometimes it's newspapers, sometimes it's books, sometimes it's dolls, sometimes it's teddy bears. In some cases, Hoarders features people that just don't throw their garbage away. And I don't know enough about the hoarding disorder to understand fully if that qualifies as hoarding in the same way, like living amongst the garbage that you haven't thrown out, as someone that collects newspapers from the last 50 years, or is buried among books, like in the picture you see, or collects VHS tapes or things like that. But those people have a different kind of attachment to the things that they're hoarding. They have a sentimental relationship with their possessions. Their possessions evoke memories. It's an actual emotional attachment. But this article, Kaplan's position is that the sentimental attachment that we see on the show is undermined by the show's own narrative and the testimonials of the people featured on the show. They will pick things up and it will trigger memories, whether it's a picture or a gift that someone gave them. And they are unable to part with these items because of the memories that they evoke. Um, the nostalgia that people have, their attachment to their things, don't seem to fit, according to Kaplan, with either reality TV's sort of the premise that the show is operating under, or the way in which therapy would work for these individuals. Now, the activities are performed by clinical therapists and professional organizers, so there's a clinical connection to what's going on in the show, but Kaplan is calling into question many of the claims that the show is making. So the clip that we're about to watch really does give you a sense of what goes on Hoarders.